Life and business can be easy, but us silly humans love getting in our own way. My name is Nico Rapclis, and I've had a wild journey. From releasing traumas that I held on to for decades, to playing college athletics, working with multi-million-dollar brands, having a spiritual awakening, and now coaching incredible humans navigate their inner and outer world. The Just Grow podcast is my outlet to share and help others with life and business. After investing north of $100,000 into my personal and professional development, the Woo plus Do formula is what has served me best. A healthy combination of mindset, energetics, consciousness, spirituality, self-healing, and discovery, matched with a high-level strategy, principles, focus, optimization, and accountability to help you be, do, and have everything that has been placed in your heart. This podcast is for the impact-driven entrepreneur that is finally ready to start thriving internally and externally. Welcome to Just Grow. Yo, what's up, my friend? My name is Nico Rapclis. I am the host of the Just Grow podcast. We're really excited to have you here on this particular episode. This is going to be with Renee Lim. She's a mindset and relationship coach, and we had an incredible conversation on how to remove those subconscious blocks that are holding down your manifestations and actually gravitating and magnetizing that life that you truly desire. And the metaphor that we explain on this episode is kind of like a hot air balloon. And so what most people will do is they'll just, continually fill that hot air balloon in with more hot air, meaning that's like taking action. But what happens is that these subconscious blocks or, these tethers that are tied to the hot air balloon, or even the sandbags that are holding it down, until you cut ties with those tethers or let go of the sandbags, it doesn't matter how much hot air you put in the hot air balloon, you're not going to continue to go up. And so that's the thing with your manifestations. If you're just constantly doing and going and being intentional and moving forward, it doesn't matter if you have these subconscious blocks that are really pulling you down. So we dove deep into that conversation, and you're not going to want to miss a single second of it. Now, before we do jump into that episode, I want to let you know about our Magnetic Manifesting School community. It's an extremely powerful community. Soon it will be a paid community. Right now it's free. We have over 500 members in there. We go live every single week. You have direct access to me where you can ask me questions on the live broadcast. We have a lot of different resources in there, subconscious reprogramming audios. You can network with all the other amazing people in there. And it's a really, really cool environment for entrepreneurs and professionals. So really excited to have you in there. And all the links are down in the video description or the show notes. But without further ado, let's jump into this interview with Renee Lim. What's up, Renee?
Hello, so happy to be here.
So glad to have you.
Thank you.
Man, we had a great conversation the other day, and I was like, let's continue this. Let's jump on a pod, let's record it, make some content out of it. I feel like the world would definitely get a lot of value of us having a conversation and dispersing it out into the interwebs.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
Absolutely. And thanks for being with us because I know you've been fighting through it for a little bit. So let's do it.
Yeah, let's go.
Well, cool. I would love to just tap into your story a little bit and how you got into this world of neuroscience and manifestation and just how you got into this world so that we can understand you a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. So my story began when I grew up in Asia, and I was actually born in Singapore, and my parents are both Singaporean and Malaysian. And when I was a little girl, I grew up in Malaysia. So a lot of the challenges that I faced from ages 0 to 7 really stemmed from getting beaten at school by teachers. And I was very, I would say, I wouldn't say mischievous, but I was so shy. I was so afraid to be myself. I I was bullied at school because I didn't speak English and everyone spoke Mandarin and Chinese, and I felt like an outcast. And when I was at home, I was also beaten at home. And then this turned into a very toxic pattern of when I grew up and my family and we all moved to Australia. I started trying to fit in. And so Australian culture is a lot of drinking and binge drinking. And I saw that as normal. So I started partaking in it from a very young age. And it got to a point where I was blacking out almost every single weekend, starting from 14 years old. And I was, I there was one moment where I actually woke up in hospital. I would wake up with like bruises and blood and cuts everywhere, and I would abuse drugs as well from a very young age. In hindsight, I realized that I was escaping a lot of my pain. And during the pandemic was when I had my first, I would say, awakening. I had finished my psychology degree, and I really asked myself, what is it that I want to do in my life? Like at that time, I loved psychology. When I started understanding, I remember doing it from high school. I loved psychology. I loved understanding about the brain. I loved understanding about how our neurons worked, and it just fascinated me. So I said, hey, this is what I want to do. I'm going to start my psychology career. And so I started studying in university, and I absolutely loved it. And I, for the very first time, started doing really well in grades, because I genuinely really loved what I was learning, and I loved it so much. And at the same time, all the theory that I was learning, all the scientific studies, everything that I was learning, my life was still the same. I was still drinking every weekend. I was still blacking out. My relationships with my family was horrible. My relationships with men were horrible, like very toxic relationships. Um, I was not taking care of my health, my body. You know, I lost my period for an entire year. I had really bad acne, all like everything that anyone could ever go through in their health, relationships, wealth. I experienced it all. And so after studying psychology, and we were going through the pandemic, I went in through down this rabbit hole of spirituality, down this rabbit hole of understanding manifestation. And through my this deeper level of awareness and excitement, I was like, wow, I can become this conscious creator of my life. And at the same time, a lot of the things that I was trying to manifest really wasn't coming into fruition because of all the traumas of my past. And I didn't know that at the time. And so I was starting to change my life. I changed my friends, I changed my habits. You know, I haven't drank alcohol for a really long time now. I completely have gone sober, and my entire life has changed today. But during that time, so it was about 4 years ago now, I went back to Australia because I was actually living in a village in Spain during the pandemic. So I didn't leave my house for 3 months because it was worse than Italy at the time. So it was like sheep everywhere, and I couldn't leave my house only once a week for groceries. And then I went back to Australia, and then we had another lockdown. So I felt like I was chasing lockdowns for 2 years. And so during that time, I completely changed my life. I started a 7-step morning routine. I started creating content. I really noticed just understanding the brain and understanding neuroplasticity, that I could completely transform my behaviors, my habits, my life. And so that's where it kind of started building from there. And then I really went deep into the subconscious mind, because I was struggling with manifesting like big ticket items, like money or like a relationship that I really, really wanted. And I went to this one seminar called How to Reprogram the Subconscious Mind. This was in during the pandemic. And I ended up staying and speaking to the facilitator. I was the last one on the call, and we spoke for hours, and then we became really good friends. And he introduced me to a modality called Psych K, which is reprogramming the subconscious mind by merging the left and right hemispheres. So we understand that the left and the right hemispheres of the brain, they have certain dominant features. For example, the right hemisphere has a lot to do with the emotional side, and then the left hemisphere has to do with a lot of the logical thinking. So just from understanding, after I did this is really when it kind of blew my mind and really made me go balls to the wall in this journey, because he basically told me that all my hay fever, I had really bad hay fever and cat allergies. It could have been due to trauma. And within 20 minutes, I used to have really bad cat allergies and hay fever. Within 20 minutes of a session, this repressed memory came up of me being beaten on the floor near Poland, like because it was near the front, next to the front door. So next to the front door, the shoes would have tracked in Poland. And he told me that if the allergen was nearby and there was a traumatic memory attached to it, that's how our body can create these allergenic responses. And so I used to, I couldn't be next to a cat. My face would swell up. I couldn't walk outside during springtime without sneezing 17 times in a row.
Wow.
And what really blew my mind was that, like, after 20 minutes of this session of rewiring the subconscious around this traumatic memory, and then I had a traumatic memory with a cat as well. This happened, that was repressed. I walked out my house and I stopped sneezing, and it just blew my mind because it was something that I could tangibly see. And then we tried with weight loss, because at the time I was struggling with weight loss. I gained all this weight from living in Spain and eating whatever I wanted and all the wine. And so I did everything with, the internet told me to do, with lifting heavy weights, counting my macros, my protein intake, making sure I was eating enough protein as my body weight, counting calories, carbs, everything, and intermittent fasting, no sugar. I was doing everything, but I was not losing the weight. I was not, it was really frustrating me. So I really installed some new beliefs around how easy and fun it was to lose weight. And within a couple months, I literally stopped exercising as much. I stopped counting calories, and I lost 7 kilos. So that's like 14 pounds, 15 pounds.
Wow.
So it just showed me how powerful the subconscious is. And there's so many different other stories of how I reprogrammed my subconscious mind, which I'd love to definitely get into as well, where after learning about Psych K and reprogramming around, I got certified in it, and then I got certified in another modality which looks at subconscious, superconscious, the conscious mind. And in the background, I've always been studying neuroscience because I just find it so fascinating. I used to see things black and white, but now I'm more into the woo. And one thing that really expanded my awareness around this topic really was when I was working in a 9-to-5, and it was my last 9-to-5 job in Australia. I was working at a life coaching school, and I was working in the sales department. I was selling the coaching courses from 5K to 25K. These were the coaching courses. And I was the lowest performer in sales because I've never done sales before. I wanted to grow, and I wanted to learn, because I know sales is going to be a really valuable skill to have. And so I remember one day when it was the end of the start of the month, we were having a morning meeting in the office, and I saw my name at the bottom of the Excel spreadsheet because I was the lowest performer in my team. And I felt just this sense of failure, and I felt so horrible about myself. I walked out of that office, and my boss was like, "Renee, what is it that I can do to help you do better? Like, what is it that you need?" And I said, like, I'm reading every single sales book. I'm listening to sales podcasts. I'm in all my spare time, from driving to work, driving home from work, in my lunch breaks, I'm literally doing everything I can to learn about sales and absorb everything I can about sales. But for some reason, that my results just wasn't picking up. So that was when I hired my first ever coach, and she helped me realize, our first session, it was right, went into the subconscious, went down to this memory that I had of being like in Malaysia, being beaten by teachers or like bullied by my schoolmates. And it created this fear of success, it created this fear of putting myself out there and doing well. And it just blew my mind, because I was like, holy shit, this is why I've been playing small my entire life, and it's not who I am. And so I did some inner child healing. I did some healing around that. And within 1 month, long story short, basically, I became one of the highest performers in my sales role. I went from like making nothing to selling like 100K every month afterwards in just 1 month. And that was like the biggest leap that I had. And I saw in my life, and it blew my mind because it was just such a short amount of time. I remember reprogramming all these new beliefs into my brain, and then 4 months later, I basically left that job, decided to travel the world. And in the last 2 years, I've been traveling Latin America. I'm living in Colombia right now, and I've been running my business for the last 2 years. During that time when I started doing really well in my 9 to 5 job, I started my online business, my coaching business as well. And yeah, it's been an amazing journey, honestly, just understanding understanding the brain, understanding how we are, there's neuroplasticity, and that we can create our life, to manifestation, thanks to all the tools and techniques, and realizing that everything that we set clear focus on, and getting clear on what it is that we want, that we can achieve it. Because I achieved my dream life when I thought I was going to achieve it in 10 years time, and it happened so quickly. It was like I had vision, I had all these pictures from Pinterest of traveling to these places that I didn't even know where they were. And then suddenly I was in Mexico, and I was in this place, and I was like, hang on a second, like I've seen this before. And I pull up my vision board from like years ago when I made it in
Yep.
COVID. And it was like exactly how it came up, and it blew my mind. And I didn't actively search out these places. I didn't know where they were. It all happened, and it was like not just one photo, it was like multiple photos. So it's insane. That's my story in a
Wow.
nutshell.
Dang, there's so much to that story. I mean, one, I just appreciate your honesty and vulnerability to share your experience in your childhood. Like, wow, that sounds challenging. But for you to like persevere past all that. But it's also interesting that I find is talking about, how that affected you so much and how there was like these big energetic blocks that were keeping you down. Because it's like, you hear that all the time. Well, I shouldn't say you hear that all the time, but like, I have conversations with people from time to time, whether clients or just people that are interested in what we have to offer. And I always say that I think we might have talked about this a little bit, but we always talk about like the woo and the do. It's like having a combination of the two, not just being full woo or full do. And it's interesting being here in Scottsdale. There's a lot of, uh, it's more like I would say there's a decent amount of like hustle culture where guys are just like, hey, let's just hustle, take action, and get the results. But it was even like what you were talking about. You were in that sales role and you were doing everything that you're supposed to do in terms of hustling and learning, and still like you just weren't experiencing the results that you desired. And it's just interesting how we have these blocks that can really stop us from everything that we're wanting. And a metaphor that I always like drawing is that it's kind of like a hot air balloon, right? And so if you're talking about like the woo and the do is putting more hot air in the air balloon. It's the hustle, it's go, go, go. But what happens a lot of time is that our hot air balloon has so many sandbags on it, and that's what's keeping it down. And sure, you could keep on filling it with hot air and you could go up a little bit, but what if you just let go of those sandbags? And then even like,
Yeah.
and it sounds even more, I would say this is kind of like your story even more, is that when you have those real dense, heavy emotions from deep in childhood, it's not even necessarily the sandbags, but it's almost like a rope tethered to the ground. That's like not, no matter how much hot air you put in that hot air balloon, until you cut that, until you cut the ties with those tethers, like you're not going up. And that sounds exactly like what was going on with you. But then once you identified that and pulled that out of your subconscious, then it was just like, then, all right, then the balloon just goes up.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I really like that analogy that you use, because what I tend to tell my clients, it's like our body, or our body is like this pressure bottle. And every time we experience a traumatic event, and it can be small T trauma or big T trauma, right? It can be
Mhm.
someone told you, oh, you can't sit there, or you can't sit with us, or you're not good enough to do this, X, Y, and Z. That's the smaller T. And then big T, where it's, physical, sexual abuse, all the things. And it fills up our pressure bottle and our cup. And
Mm.
because we don't have the right tools to tip it out, release those sandbags, we cap it so tightly, we screw it so tightly, and then that's why we get triggered in really random situations. And manifestation really is a process of letting go of these sandbags, as opposed to getting clear on what it is that you want, trying to move forward and hustle
Mm.
and do more. It's not, it's really letting go more so.
Absolutely. I was sharing this on our call yesterday inside of our school community, and I heard this quote, or it was like an Instagram post, and basically the woman was saying that if you can just master letting go, like you'll pretty much have the life that you ever wanted. Right? Just getting insanely good at letting go. Like that's your number one priority, to get insanely good at mastering letting go, and then everything else will take care of itself. And I resonate with that so much because historically speaking, like I have been one to like hold on tight and try and control everything. And this is how it goes. And it's like once you truly just like, nah, I'm good. And there's so much wisdom in the unknown too. And I think that's what's a powerful like realization, is that I don't know that much. And the more I learn, the more I realize the less I know. And to think like
Mm.
us little humans on this giant universe have really that much to do with how big this, and like it's ridiculous when we really look it out and we zoom out and be like, you really think you have that much control over what's going on? So I love that you said that. So I would say like a question that pops up from that when people come to you and you're recognizing, well, I guess I had a couple questions that popped up, is one is like obviously, you went to this person and you recognized that you had a subconscious block. Um, how do you go about helping people figure out whether they need to remove a subconscious block or they do need to take more action? Like, how do you decipher that? And then another question that I had is like, when you have clients that you're recognizing that they're having challenges letting go, what's kind of your process to help them move through that and start trusting more?
So the first question is, if whether that's a subconscious block or taking action, is the reason that they're not taking action is because of a subconscious block.
Mm-hmm.
So how I would approach supporting a client in getting clear on what the subconscious block is first getting out of the conscious mind, because we know that the conscious mind governs 5 to 10% of our waking day, of our emotions, behaviors. And so the subconscious mind is where all our fears, our limiting beliefs, all our programs are stored. And we run a lot of these subconscious programs from the our behaviors from these subconscious programs. So to get into that state, into that, say, more theta brainwave state, into a slow wave brain state, typically that is, when before we go to sleep or right when we wake up, is really getting them into a meditative state. So I like to first ask some questions and get a clear understanding of where of first of all, like, where did this come from? Like asking really important questions to peel back these layers again and again and again of, like, let's take an example of someone who is trying to run a business, and they're an entrepreneur, and business is not flowing as well as it once was, and they've come to me with problems from their relationships, because everything I see is interconnected, intertwined. If you're having troubles right now with your relationships, with your family, it's typically tied to your business and money as well. So I would ask some questions, and most of the time I like to follow and track the sensations that come up in the body. So the triggers or the sensations that actually come up in the body give us really good indicators of how to go into the subconscious, because the subconscious is the body. The subconscious is our nervous system. The subconscious, yes, there is a part of the brain, but everything is connected, like our peripheral nervous system, central nervous system, you know, the brain, the spine, the spinal cord, everything is connected. So in the body, it gives you a really good indicator of, say they feel like some sort of sensation in their chest, it acts as like a portal almost. So when I get them in a meditative state and get them to go into this portal, like going into the sensation, whether it's a color, a shape, a vibration, whatever it looks like, they are transported back to a moment in their childhood. It comes up pretty quickly. They're transported to a moment in their childhood, or even sometimes in the womb, or sometimes in past lives or past generations, which is a really interesting one. And what we do is we clear the belief, or we clear the misunderstanding, or all the energy tied to that memory, because most of the time it's a misunderstanding. As a child, we absorb the world and we create all these meanings about ourselves, about what has happened, and not necessarily it being the real truth or how it actually happened. So, you know, we know with science that a lot of memory is fallible, and depending on your mood, depending on how you felt that day or what color shirt you were wearing, it could have morph the memory a little bit. So every time we recall that memory as well, it gets fragmented each time. So it's not necessarily how it happened. The memory didn't, it's how we thought it happened. We believed for it to happen. So going back into that moment, what is true though is how you feel in the body about it. Is that you know, that energy that was stored in the body, that emotions that you carried within, whether it created shame or guilt or fear or anxiety in the body or some anger, that is valid to you. That's what's really real and present and alive for them in that moment. So doing some work to clear it at the root cause, and when they clear that energy, what happens is that the perception of how that memory happened starts to shift. So for example, say I'll give you an example of myself, where as I went back to, say, a moment of when I was a little girl and I was getting bullied and I was getting, you know, tormented by my teachers, I created this safety. It's like kind of like inner child work, but I created this safety, and I allowed her to feel safe, to be accepted, to be forgiven. And just through that safety of changing the narrative, giving her words of wisdom, giving her this kind of wisdom and teachings of like a higher self almost, because, you know, we are connected to a higher self and we're almost like a higher self for our little ones. And once she feels that safety, it's like I kind of zoom back out, I leave the situation, and the way she responds to that moment. So say I would have, you know, cried, or I would have just kind of isolated myself. Instead, now as a little girl, I see myself stepping into this, what this memory, and I feel a little bit more empowered. I'm kind of just in my own zone. I'm not fazed by what had just happened, and I don't make it mean anything about myself. So what has happened now is just I've changed that memory. I've changed how I feel about that memory, how I see that memory, and in turn I change the now. Like I change how I feel now, and that becomes so powerful, because you stopped letting that story, because everything are just stories. You know, everything that we remember are just stories that we've created. I've changed that story in the now, and it stopped holding me back. And in that sense, you know, we've spoken a lot about letting go, which I don't know if you've read Dr. David Hawkins, his book Letting Go, but that's my favorite book of all time. It's this process of not letting any story have this hold on us, and we're consistently letting go of these emotions. And that's a really powerful way to do it in my experience. So that's your, I think that answers your, I hope that answers your first question.
Yeah, that was beautiful. And kind of what I'm hearing from that, just to so I can get my thoughts in line here, is that with people that are having these blocks, you can come in and recognize them, and it's really about the awareness and where did those emotions come from, and identifying those times and points and memories, and recognizing like how you responded to those and built a story around it. Because like you said, is that it's always a story. Like the only thing I heard this quote a while back is like the only thing that's stopping you from anywhere you want to go is the bullshit story that you keep telling yourself.
Yeah.
And so it's just like it's changing the narrative, it's changing the story. And I think about that a lot of like, what story could I tell myself? Because it's like, even it's all perspective, right? Maybe it's a relationship that ends that like you're holding on to, and you keep telling your story, well, I'm not good enough, and that's why they didn't want to be with me. Or you could change it
Mm,
like, oh, that was a stepping stone to a more beautiful relationship. And it's just like whatever story you consistently keep telling yourself, you even put in that word there that I love, is that you consistently let go of the emotions. You consistently tell yourself that story. And the more consistent you are with telling yourself that story and letting go of those emotions, that's when you can start stepping into that life that you truly desire.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You phrased it perfectly.
Yeah, but it all comes down to awareness and figuring out like where did those things come from? Where did those emotions come from? How did you respond to those experiences? Because like you said, it could be little T trauma, it could be big T trauma, but it's how we responded to it and our association with the emotions and feelings around how we responded to it.
Absolutely. It's our emotions that dictate a lot of our life. And that's why I really emphasize emotional intelligence, emotional awareness, because that is huge. And I don't know if you know this, Nico, but I used to be a very angry person. Like I would be such an angry person, like short fuse person, like
Wow.
everything kind of like it was all this suppressed and repressed emotions. And so I can't stress this enough. I was living a lot in this shame and this guilt, and it's been such a process. I think for me it feels a lot longer, but I know that I'm not alone in this, and a lot of people probably have experienced what I've experienced or even worse. um but it is that's why it feels for me that the healing journey, or this journey with manifestation, is it feels very dense. Like not dense is the word what I want to say. It's like there's a lot more to it. I have to do more of the work to clear it, because going from where I was back then to who I am now is very different. I remember the last time I got angry, and the way that I handle really tough situations, which we're human, we get these really tough situations, is our ability to bounce back with our emotional intelligence. Because if someone's threatening you with like a lawsuit, you can, like you said, it's perspective. It's like, okay, this could be the worst thing that's ever happening to me right now, or I could see it as, great, this is now my opportunity to learn about law or something like that, right? Like it's how you see the perspective that you have around a given situation that really changes everything.
Mm, so good. So once those blocks are eliminated, or I'm saying eliminated, but you started clearing those denser emotions and you're letting go of the sandbags, you're cutting the ties with the tethers of the ground. Like, what's your take on getting clear on what you want?
So in terms of when someone doesn't know what they want, or they
Yeah.
clear it first and then they
Yeah, like how does getting clear on what you want play into manifestation, and how do you approach it when people don't know what they want?
mm, yeah, it's a very interesting one. I've had clients that have come in and said, I don't actually know what I want. And I just see that as a whole lot of emotions that are clouding your judgment. It's kind of
Mm,
like I'm not sure if you've gotten this. I've had a lot of clients that say, I felt like there was just this gray cloud over my life, or I've just felt like there was this gray cloud that, was following me everywhere, and I just didn't know what I want. And in response to that is those gray clouds, I see them as energy, emotion that are blocking you from knowing what you want. You already know what you want. It's already within you. It's also in the past, I didn't know what I want because I was kind of sleepwalking through life. I didn't know that I could decide on getting what I want. Like I didn't know that I could decide to have nice things or like have an amazing life because I was a victim to life. I was sleepwalking through life. So, with the understanding of visualization and getting clear. So first and foremost, once we clear those emotions and when we clear and let go of those sandbags, what tends to happen is that you start to get clearer on realizing this is what you want. Or what tends to happen is like I've had clients that have come in and think that they want this, $1 million business to retire their husband. And then they come out of the container realizing that's not what I wanted. That was all due to trauma. So it's like it's gonna get clearer on what really is important to you. And what we tend to chase, like for me, I was chasing something for a long time and then realizing that it was linked to, I don't want to throw the term around so much, but trauma, or it was linked to a certain emotion or ego or whatever it is. And so getting clear on what you want is really connecting to your heart. And there is this, I've spoken about wants and desires. So the two are different in terms of wanting is a different energy. Wanting has an energy of, I want this thing because I saw Mark have it. Like he has this, Bentley and Rolls Royce, and I want that because like he's got it. I want it. It's a very 2-year-old kind of energy. It's a like a toddler being like, oh, I saw my little sister have it, so now I gotta have it. As opposed to a desire where it feels super grounded. It comes from the body. It's a very grounding energy of, I really desire, a beach, a house on the beach, because it just feels like it's coming from here. The energy is coming from here. And when you get clear on realizing that this desire and getting clear on what you want is coming from your heart, from your body, that's a very grounding energy. And that's the types of manifestations that tend to manifest, because we've heard the saying that the desires on your heart are there for a reason. God put them in your heart because you're meant to realize them. And so what is the difference between like, oh, I want this thing, besides the desire that you have here? And the desires that I had really was to travel the world and work from my laptop, work from anywhere, and help change people's lives. And so I that realized in a very short amount of time. And I also love using tools like visualization, because we know that visualization does create new neural networks in the brain and enforces them, especially when we tie it with emotion, which, using dopamine to strengthen these neural networks in the brain. And the more we practice this, the visualization, the more that our brain doesn't realize the difference between imagination and what's real, and it can realize. And I'm sure you played a lot with visualization. I've heard you speak about it. I played a lot around with it as well when I first was invited to speak publicly on a stage in front of hundreds of people, when I've never spoken on a stage before. And it was so terrifying, because I had a huge fear of public speaking, had a huge fear of being seen. And I kept visualizing every single night. And it didn't even take, I was invited in 1 week and I prepared the speech in like a day. I kept visualizing every night instead of practicing my speech, the CEO coming up to me and congratulating me and telling me how amazing it was. And it happened the exact way I visualized it. So it was amazing to see that happen.
Yep.
And yeah, like with tools like understanding the reticular activating system, which is the network of neurons that filter out anything that isn't important to us. So how we can use this through to manifest our goals is to um, when we get clear on what it is that we want, and there are opportunities that are happening around us every day. Like you may walk past the love of your life in the street, but you're not aware of that because perhaps your RAS is not activated because you haven't gotten clear on what it is that you want. And so when you get clear on what it is that you want, it filters out what's not important, and it allows you to see those opportunities in front of you that you may have missed if you didn't get clear on your goals and on your manifestations.
Mm. Wow. Dang, you're just dropping gold today. I resonate with what you're saying about like wants versus desires. And I've heard that before, and it's just such a great reminder to be like that want is more of like that 2-year-old energy. I don't have it, so I want it. You have it, so I want it. Rather than like really sitting there and feeling into it and being like, well, what do I desire? What feels true to me? And when you can operate from that lens, there's so much more depth to that. And because there is, then it's like there's there's a yearning for it. There's like a healthy a healthy obsession with it, if you will. You know,
Mm.
And so I think that's such, like I said, just such a great reminder because anything that I've like really felt deep in my heart, like, yes, this is gonna happen. It's not a wanting, it's a knowing because I know it's meant for me. And I think I've heard this recently is like, I don't know if they said it was like the point of life, but like I think it was success. Like success is finding what your gifts are and becoming your highest self.
Mm.
And I feel like that comes from the heart, right? And it comes from the heart because then now you can feel it. And because of the fact that you can feel it, you actually draw that in. And so it is getting clear with like that heart intelligence and really getting grounded and clearing those traumas and emotions. And that's all the first starting point. Once you clear that out, now you can get actually clear and really feel into what it is that is for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like I love the talk around the brain and heart connection because Dr. Joe Dispenza talks a lot about brain and heart coherence, and and then there's our intuition, our gut as well, where we've actually, with science, it actually shows us that our heart has neurons, so our heart can actually think for itself, which is really, really amazing. And our gut also has these neurons. So when we have all of that into alignment, it does become this extremely magnetic, you become this magnet towards what it is that you want. And yeah, the desires of your heart, they're there for a reason. And I bring it up because recently I had this, I did want something. It was something that I wanted. I was like, I want to live in Miami. And I was like, wait a minute, why do I want to live in Miami? I was because I was seeing all these people living in Miami thinking that that was what I wanted. And so I had to get really clear with myself, getting really honest with myself and what my heart actually desires. And truthfully, that's not what my heart desires. It's just a very mental thing.
Mm, yeah. I think I heard this, and then I think this would be a great spot for us to show you your Vision Espresso because this all aligns in perfectly now. But I heard it recently, and it said when you stay in your head, your manifestations get weak. And that just like really solidified for me there when you were talking about like Miami was a thinking want rather than like a heart's
Mm,
desire. Yeah, like
yeah.
stay away from the thinking wants and stay in tune with the heart's desires. I think you stay with that, and that's when the manifestations just are really drawn to you and you become magnetic. And that's what we talk about. That's our messaging is like becoming a magnetic manifester rather than like trying to force things in with your head and just like want. It's like you become magnetic because the manifestations are from your heart and there's so much intelligence in your heart.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Absolutely.
Well, cool. Are you ready to listen to your Vision Espresso?
I don't know. Am I? Yeah, I am.
So to just to preface it real quick, there's a little bit of an intro at the beginning, and it'll ask you what is your intention for the day, to speak that out loud, and then what is one thing that you're grateful for. And so to speak those two out loud when it prompts you, and then it'll lead you into a little bit of breath work, and then it'll fade right into your audio.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay.
All righty. Let's rock and roll. Now, before I hand you off to your highest self, I have three things for you. One, what is your intention for today? Say it out loud.
My intention for today is to serve and connect and have fun.
Good. Number two, what is one thing you're grateful for right now? Say it out loud.
I'm grateful for the sun shining into my apartment today.
Awesome. Now, three, I want you to take 10 highly connected, highly conscious breaths.
Hey Renee, it's me, it's you, the future you. I'm so excited for you to get here, to see who you've become and all you've created. Yeah, the lean, vibrant physique from disciplined health routines, the financial freedom and mastery over wealth consciousness, the circle of soul sisters, and the dream man of your life, the luxurious beach house with panoramic ocean views, the white Porsche and first class travels, and all the lives you've had a massive impact on as a globally recognized coach, especially your own. Renee, you're incredible. There's absolutely no one out there like you. And as you continued to listen to that vision audio from Nico, is when things really started to shift. Your journey was unfolding more beautifully than you could have ever imagined. Your health transformation was nothing short of revolutionary. You dedicated yourself to a regimen of Pilates, boxing, and dancing, sculpting your body into a lean, vibrant form, weighing precisely between 52 and 55 kilos. This wasn't just about fitness, it was a profound reinvention of your energy and spirit. The confidence you gained was radiant, empowering you to wear your favorite outfits with elegance and walk the beaches with undeniable grace. Financially, you achieved incredible milestones. You reached an annual income of $200,000, becoming debt-free and watching your investments thrive. This financial liberation was not merely about numbers. It was a deep dive into personal development, enhancing your financial intelligence and mastering wealth consciousness. Every decision was a stepping stone to greater wealth and independence. In your social life, you surrounded yourself with soul sisters, women whose energy and aspirations echoed your own. This network of powerful women supported and inspired you, creating a circle of shared growth and heartfelt moments. Love, too, blossomed beautifully. You met the man of your dreams, crafting a relationship built on mutual support, deep love, and conscious partnership. He was everything you wished for, enhancing your life with joy and shared ambitions. You lived in a stunning beach house, a sanctuary with panoramic ocean views that greeted you every morning. The kitchen, a chef's paradise, was equipped with every modern luxury, from a high-end espresso machine to a sleek pasta maker. Here you unleashed your culinary creativity, hosting gatherings that were both nourishing and memorable. Your white Porsche became more than just a vehicle, it was a symbol of your journey and your success.
This car took you on numerous adventures, ferrying you to upscale events and serene getaways. Your travels were lavish, from the historic streets of Sicily to the glamorous Amalfi Coast, always wrapped in the comfort of first-class luxury. Professionally, you ascended to remarkable heights. As a globally recognized coach, your words influenced thousands, and your methods transformed lives. Speaking engagements at major events became commonplace, cementing your status as a visionary leader. Renee, I love you. I love who you are. I love who you've always been, and I love who you're constantly becoming. Now get up and make it a great day.
That was amazing. I got tears in my eyes for sure. So good.
It's funny, you sent me that song, and almost at the same exact time you sent it, someone else sent it to me too.
That's amazing.
I'd
It's
never heard
not
it
no
before.
coincidence.
There's
Oh,
no
really?
coincidence.
Such a good song.
Yeah, it was wild. But
I love that song.
yeah, those are fun to listen to.
So good. Yeah, it's definitely my manifestation song.
Yeah, so I'd be curious to like just hear a little bit more of your perspective on that whole process.
My process of manifestation
On the espresso.
on the espresso.
Yeah.
In what sense?
Probably like the process of creation of it, creating it, like going through the questions.
Hmm. I always had a really clear vision of what my ideal perfect day was, and with the help of ChatGPT, I crafted my perfect day in massive detail. So I already had one of those questions taken care of, and then with not like wanting what I don't knowing what I don't want, that's pretty easy. That's how our brain is focused on.
Yeah.
And then getting to my health, relationship, wealth goals. I've always every couple of weeks to every month to every year I get clear on okay what it is that I want to achieve this year, what are my goals, and then taking it step by step. I always have that I've always had this one vision of me on the beach in this beach house. Like it came to me 4 years ago, and it feels like everything that I am doing or being is leading up to that point, because no matter what I do, I always visualize that image always comes to me. Maybe you have this one image or this one memory that always comes to you as well. So
Yeah.
that's for me, it's like me this in this beach house. And uh so since then I'm just kind of like adding things of what I would love to experience, uh and I've done so many activities of what would it be really fun to experience in this lifetime? What would be so much fun to uh like I've done so many numerous rounds of exercises around this, and it always comes down to a few of the same things. And like we've spoken about, it's how does it make me feel in my body to want those things. And like yeah, we all want the most: health, wealth, and relationships. Like the three things that people want the most: get paid, laid, and live forever, right? Like that's just the it's what we want as humans. And obviously we all want those things because we think it's going to make us we want the feeling of what those things bring us more than the actual thing itself, right? And I personally would love to experience all those things, and I've always been clear with my goals around each area of my life. And they either start to, like, as we grow as humans, like you mentioned, we are small little humans. We don't know everything. We don't know the bigger scheme of things. And sometimes I like to surrender it more to a higher power, because I have, had created like a 200-page list of my dream men. But then when I manifested these types of men into my life, I convinced myself that they were my person when they weren't. And it goes to show that I don't know a lot. I don't know what it is that I truly want. I can have a framework of what I want, but I also want to surrender. Like I've learned to kind of drop those lists and surrender more to what's going to be best for me, and connecting more to a feeling as opposed to trying to control the outcome of everything. Because I like you, I was a huge not control freak, but I definitely had this one of my, I'm not sure if you know what Gene Keys is, but one of my life's purpose is to overcome this the need for control and force and control. And I was like, oh my God, damn. So yeah, that's me.
And that's a valuable point. And it's interesting because, I mean, that's ultimately why I even started creating these. We started these like 3 years ago, and I had a story where probably like one of the first things that happened in my life where I started manifesting was when I was playing baseball. And I would imagine myself hitting home runs off the seven of the scoreboard. And just like what you're saying, you got that one thing that you're always focused on. And that was the thing for me. I would visualize it, I would see it, but I would feel it most importantly. And I had that feeling locked in before it ever happened. And then I would start applying that process to other things, and I wouldn't necessarily feel that. And then I was like, how do I create something that helps me with the feeling? Because that's all we ever want. Another relate. Did you say get paid, laid, and live forever? Is that what
Yeah.
you said?
Yeah, I did.
That's a great quote. I've never heard that before. You just like glossed over it too. I was like, that deserves to be highlighted.
Yeah.
But it really is like the relationship, the money, like we want those things, we desire those things because it's that feeling that those things give us. But if we can tap into that feeling beforehand, then we already have that. Like that's what we're after, and we just want to feel that. So that's why we created it, is like how do we continue to tap into that feeling more and more? I feel like the more that we get integrated into that feeling, the more it draws in, and we don't even care as much that we have those things or they come in. It's just because like we've already been experiencing it before they even came in.
Absolutely. That brain heart connection is what becomes so magnetizing. Like I just said, I got tears in my eyes. And I love that you created this Vision Espresso, because I'm sure you're going to cultivate a lot of these deeper level emotions for everyone that listens to their Vision Espresso. If you're full on crying and so grateful for this 5-minute audio, then you've already cultivated those emotions in the body. And one thing that came up for me is why some people, like I've definitely had trouble with cultivating these emotions with my visualizations. And what I've found is that it can be due to a lot of resistance that we have towards that thing, or that level of believability that we have towards attaining that goal or that manifestation. And so clearing that resistance, clearing that energy is going to be super profound to create those emotions and cultivate those emotions. Because the more I do, for example, EFT or do any like clearing of my energy, or that emotional work, the more connected I can feel towards my goals.
Mm. So that was going to be a question. I think that's one we can wrap up on a few of these questions because it's been an incredible conversation. But do you feel, if this is what you said, that the reason that people have lack of belief, because I believe that belief is everything. Like if you just believed you're able to do anything, you would do it. But what you're saying, what I'm hearing, is that the reason that people have challenges with belief is because there's some type of resistance there.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. It's the when it comes to manifestation, it's how you feel about your certain goal. Like if I said to you, Nico, on a scale of 1 to 10, how successful do you believe you are in your business? Maybe you feel like, I don't know, in your body it's a 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't know, right? And someone that is looking outside of you may look and be like, you're at a 10, Nico, like you're successful because you're on Netflix and you're doing all these things and you've got a podcast. But it's how you feel towards your goal that is the most important thing to when it comes to manifestation. And the resistance that we have and the level of believability on a scale of 1 to 10 as well. That's just how I track things with my clients, because it's what's real for them in that moment.
Yeah.
It's the resistance, it's the level of resistance that you have towards it. And so clearing that resistance, like those sandbags, like the water bottle analogy, will allow us to elevate towards our higher self, towards the experience that we want to experience. And I also like what you said about having that gratitude for it now. Having that, because then you don't feel that you need it or you want it. It's that energy of, I already have it right now because I can feel it so deeply in my body. And that energy of not wanting something and not desiring something, that energy is always that clinging on to that energy, that desperate, smelly energy is already very repelling. And so clearing the resistance, I would say, is very important, because if you have resistance towards taking action towards that goal, then you're going to find out excuses, and the brain plays tricks on you sometimes. If your brain your subconscious is like the world's toughest security guard. It wants to protect you, it wants to keep you safe. It does not like change. It does not like change for anything. So that familiarity, that safety is going to tell you, your brain, like, don't invest in yourself. Don't do this big thing that is going to be very dangerous, because it's unknown, because it's unfamiliar. So the brain, I tell my clients, like, the brain plays tricks on you all the time. And sometimes we get to override those programs. Obviously, we are, like, I love it, we are the coder, we are the engineer, we are the computer that is playing out those programs, and we are also the fuel. Like, we how we choose to fuel ourselves, through the food that we eat, through how we meditate, our habits, even pollution, all those things take into account how well your brain functions, and how well you can create new neural networks in the brain, and how well you can create new habits and let go of that old identity, that old resistance towards where you want to be.
Sheesh. I could just listen to you talk. Man, it's so good. I mean, I've never heard, I've said this before, yeah, but you like added a layer to it. I always say that like your subconscious is like the security guard. And what I've said a lot too is like coming back to like Dispenza's work about the brain waves. And once you get into theta, it's like that's when the door opens to the subconscious. That's when the security guard is taking tips to get in, you know?
Yeah.
But but if not, if you're in those beta brain waves, that is the toughest security guard in the world, and you'll never get past that guy.
Yeah. So
You have to really tap into those motions. And because here's the other thing I was going to say too, is that our emotions, I heard this recently, I don't know if you've ever heard it in this phrase is this way, is that our emotions are simply there to get us to take an action. And so if there's fear, or fear, any of those dense emotions, it's blocking you from taking that action. And so until you clear that emotion, you're not actually able to take that action. And it's just like, it's cool to just hear you talk about this and so passionately and so embodied with this, because I started learning much more about this stuff probably at the end of last year, which was eye-opening for me, because I was always just more of like, get clear on what you want, go after it, take action. But then I started realizing it's, again, dropping the sandbags, cutting the ties. And that's what's, has to happen in order for you to really get that hot air balloon going up. But it was interesting because I've started doing this a lot more with my clients as well. It's like I'm starting to realize the power within it. And there was one of my clients, he had this block around posting on social media. And so we got to the heart of it, and we got to the matter, and I was like, what are you like really afraid of? And we even broke it down even further. And he was like, well, it's actually like the fear of judgment, of being seen. And so we even went deeper on it. And I was like, okay, well, like from who? Like who are like it's not just like anybody and everybody. It's someone. And he's like, well, yeah, you're right. It's an ex-girlfriend. Like I don't want her to see my stuff and her to like look at me and judge me. And once we got to the root of that, we got clear on that. Now we know what to clear. And we cleared that. And it's crazy. Like he would post, you know, an image like every 2 weeks or every month or something like that. And obviously like setting the intention too on why he wants to do it. But once we cleared that, like he's posted like every day videos, just him talking to the camera, like so excited, like so much love and joy and energy. And I was like, wow. And it just like, again, like I said, this conversation has even sparked me even further to be like, I want to dive even deeper into like removing blockages because that's really where it's at.
Oh, absolutely. Like it's it really is an act of getting clear, taking action, of course, but the more we can release that resistance, remove what is getting in that way, because a lot of the times, sometimes we feel like we are taking 10 steps forward, but then there's this something that is kind of holding you back. And that can, for other people, may look like procrastination, or it may look like it can be anything really, like starting a program or taking all this action and creating something when it isn't going to take you the quickest route towards your goals, because it's a distraction. Like that's what we think that we need to do. Like for me, for a long time I thought I needed to create like all these different programs and X, Y, and Z to get to where I want to be. But if I just kind of gotten quiet and listened to what is the most aligned action that I should be taking right now, and take that aligned action, it's going to get me farther than doing all these 10 million different things right now, if that makes sense.
100%. Well, wow, this has been an incredible conversation. I really appreciate you jumping on the podcast, Renee.
Thank you so much for having me, Nico. It's been so much fun.
Yeah. One last question I always like to end off on is, well, I'd say probably two questions. Is one, after people listening to this conversation, what is it that you would love for them to get out of this conversation?
I would love for everyone and anyone to be listening to this to know that whatever desire is on their heart, that they are able to achieve it. Any resistance, anything that is stopping you from taking action towards your goals or even realizing your goals, is all based on stories like we've spoken about of the past, or resistance that is in the body, that we do have to continuously regulate the nervous system, as opposed to reprogramming the subconscious mind. They both go hand in hand. The nervous system for me was a huge catalyst in understanding energy, and with all the conditionings from the past and all the, I would say the beliefs and traumas that I picked up, they were all stored in my body. And the more I was able to regulate my nervous system every single day, as including taking action towards my goals, the lighter I felt, the more resistance is let go of, and the quicker you'll be able to get to your goals. So just know that anything that you want, you can have anything that you want in this world when it comes from your heart. And don't let anyone else try to program you or tell you otherwise. And never, I highly encourage everyone to tap into their own inner wisdom, because no one knows you better than you. And the more we give our power away to, external sources, we can always have people to guide us and mentor us, but the best ones are always going to guide us back to ourselves and to our own infinite and wisdom within.
Yes. We know everything. It's just a matter of like getting rid of those dark clouds so that you can see.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have any asks or yeah, anything from the audience, anybody listening, any way we can support you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can always reach me on my Instagram. I offer one-on-one support, and I do have a new program that just came out, which is called neuromanifestation. So understanding all the science behind your subconscious mind and your body, and all the tools that I've ever used to regulate my nervous system and reprogram my subconscious mind, the things like I've spoken about, Psych-K, to hypnosis, to EFT. It's all within this program that I've created. So it's going to be amazing if anyone wants to jump into that and can start understanding the science and marrying it with spirituality.
I love that. Got to incorporate both, the woo and the do.
Yeah, the woo and the do.
Well, thanks again, Renee. We'll put all your stuff down below. We'll have you get me all the links to that, and we'll make sure and put it in the show notes and everything. But really appreciate you coming on. This has been an epic conversation, and I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. I had so much fun. Thanks,
Yeah.
Nico.
Yeah. See ya.